Morning. What a week. I've been working with an artist recently over the course of the last month on some really cool stuff that's kind of a love letter to Jeff Lynne, and wanted to show you guys how we're achieving some of the stuff with the drums specifically, because it's really fun when I'm getting to produce stuff and can really go nuts over the drums and how we do stuff. Let's dive in. Okay, so with one of the songs, we wanted to try something really creative. Like I said, the artist really wanted to channel this kind of Jeff Lynne kind of vibe when he was working with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, that kind of thing. And I remember always hearing that the ELO song, Don't Bring Me Down, they had used, supposedly, the drum tracks from another song on the same record and had just slowed down the tape, which gave the drums this really, really super cool tone. And I wanted to see if we could do that in Pro Tools. So I bounced down just the little demo we had. Here's just a little bit of it. Right, you can hear I think you can even hear the little drum machine we use just for the artist to play to. Which, of course, had to be Lindrum samples, right? Then once we got that done, we went in and you can see these warp markers here I put in to allow me to speed up and slow down the performance. You have to put the track in ticks to be able to do that. Then I went through, moved it up. We did a couple of experiments. We found out that 10 dB, boop, 10 BPM faster felt the best when it was slowed back down. So check out what we did. We upped the tempo to 127 instead of 117. Now the track sounds like this. Right? It's not as groovy. But I played to the track. I went downstairs. I used the kit that hopefully I'm showing you now. Very minimal miking, just a simple Beta 52 in the kick, front head off, 57 on the snare, one of my custom-made KM84s on the hat, one of my custom-made 87s as a mono overhead, and that was it. And then, of course, we've got some room mics here that I always have on and ready just in case they sound cool. You never know. And it was the kind of thing where you turn the pre's up and you play really soft to get kind of that 70s, 80s vibe. So you get this with the performance. Not the most groovy thing, because obviously it's still a lot faster. I mean, drum kit sounds good, it's nothing spectacular, especially considering how we record drums these days. When I was done with that, I ended up taking these tracks, right, turning them into tracks that are tick-based instead of sample-based, which is the norm. I decided that the elastic time we were going to use was varispeed, which means it's going to act like a tape recorder, right? When you slow things down, you're extending the waveforms, so you're making those waves longer. They're going to thus pitch downward, right? Same thing, if you're trying to speed something up, you move it forward, it becomes really chipmunky. So we're going to try and slow it down. Once I had it recorded at 127, I went in, I put a couple of warp markers. All you really have to do, assuming that your drummer has good time, wink, is put a warp marker at the front, scroll all the way over here, put one at the back. There you go. And then hopefully the distance mathematically between everything is going to stay the same. And I just slowed the tempo down. Just said, okay, back to the normal tempo. And you get this. The song feels better. But check out the sound difference. Let me again mute the track. Let me speed this back up, 127. Here are the original drums. All right, and here it is again at 117. Everything has so much more body to it. The hi-hat sounds really nice and smooth. Oh, yeah. This is what we went with. So once we got that done, it was time for part two. Okay, here we are back in the main session. You can see we've recorded a bunch of other stuff on the song. Started editing it down and everything. It is still not mixed. It's not even finished. We don't even have a final vocal on it. But what we do have are the drums that we tracked previously. I'm going to mute these. Here are our original drums with the track as it stands right now. I mean, not bad at all. You can see I did put a little Pro Q on the kick, a little bit more attack, a little bit less of low end. That was kind of what's added as part of the Varispeed slowing down process. We got a little bit more of a low end bloom and lost some of our smack. But that's really it. And then I opened up and found a balance for our room mics here. Let me show you. Here's without. This is the original drum mix. Right. Bring in the room. Great, nice little bit of ambience. Now you're hearing more smack to the drums and everything. I have like right now a little bus compressor, a little smiley face, Pultec EQ on the master bus, just to help when we're making decisions about what goes next and everything. I usually turn it off when tracking, but when making decisions and editing, I always want it to sound as full as possible, like close to a mix. Again, it's not mixed, but that if you're feeling like the drums sound a little better, they're benefiting from hitting the master bus there. So there you go. There are our drums. And what I decided to do further in the track, I felt like they still weren't really smacking like I needed them to. But so I went ahead and put in some samples that I have just amassed from my time, just stuff I've put together myself and borrowed from other places and everything. And what we have now, we have several things that I sampled, and I decided I didn't need the snare or the kick sample, because what I did instead is I used my handy Valley People Dynamite compressor. I'm pointing, I don't know, can you see that? Pointing over here. Hopefully I've got some sort of video or something that's showing that. And I used the Dynamite compressor to both gate and compress the original track, because again, we're trying to stay close to the kind of that 80s aesthetic and everything. They weren't using a lot of samples. They would occasionally put a mic on top of put a speaker on the snare, put a mic underneath and mic that, and kind of do like a live sample thing to get a little bit more rattle from the snare. But there wasn't a whole lot of stuff going on. I mean, you can look up the Wendell, with Steely Dan and stuff like that, but that's all way beyond the topic of this. For right here, what we wanted to do is kind of focus on what they would have had at the time, going through a console, things like that. So gating, compressing, things like that to create the sounds and make them bigger and smackier. So what I did is I just did a hardware print for the snare and for the kick. So I will add those in as we listen here. Snare coming online in just a second, right now. Right, kick coming in right here. Same drums, same parts, no samples. It's just we're parallel with some nice Valley People Dynamite gating and compression. And then I did end up keeping samples that I used of some ambience that I again have from my time. So you can hear here. It's so tiny, right? So there's that ambience and this one. Those are all just natural ambient samples that I have. Some are actually samples through reverb. I've got the Things Tilt, love that plugin. Just a little bit of low end, taking out some of the high end so it doesn't sound too harsh. And then a little bit of kick tail as well. It's one of my room samples from one of my kicks. So, yeah, so you put it all together and you get this. Right, compared against, again, what it sounded like without everything. Sorry, I hid something. This is always the way it is, right? Like you're trying to be all cool and demonstrate stuff for people, and then you end up absolutely blowing it and doing something bizarre. So, what are you guys into these days? Anybody like any sports or anything while I'm trying to figure this out? Oh, good God. How hilarious. There we go. That's finally it. And now we're going to mute that. Awesome. Get those. Ugh. Okay, hi. We're back again. Let's try this. Take two. Boop. So now, this is the original drums. Let's see. Kick, snare, hat. No room. Here we go. Now, as quick as I can, hopefully without any horrible mistakes like last. Horrible. I mean, come on. Compared to genocide, not close to a horrible mistake. Here we go. Much healthier with the track. Very nice. By the way, quick note, yes, I lay out my drums completely backwards from everybody else I've ever known in the professional music industry. That is because it just makes sense to my brain that way, to have things top to bottom, highest frequency sound source to lowest frequency sound source. We could, I'm sure, have a flame war about it, but that's the way I like it. That's the way it makes sense to me. Anywho, part two. After doing all that with the drums, we ended up going into doing the fills separately. Right, which was something that was sometimes done. That's more of like an overall 80s, early 80s, late 70s style thing. Not always a Jeff Lynne thing, but we wanted to do it in this case, right? So we set up a kit, which hopefully I'm showing you now. Blick. And it was a really funny setup. Just a single stereo overhead ribbon mic, and then a much lower rack tom and floor tom on the same horizontal level with a snare. And I sat there and played some fills over the top of everything, which when we cut out all the space in between, we got stuff like this leading into the chorus, right? Let me solo this up. Decided which mics I liked and which I didn't. Super cool. Now, you'll note that one of the mics that I have in here, I actually wired in my talkback. I happened to be talking about some ideas back and forth with the artist while I was downstairs on the talkback mic, and while I had the pedal down, I was like, "Whoa, that sounds really cool!" Again, right? Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight, same kind of thing. They were using an SSL compressor on the console. They had someone wired up so they could record it. And I was like, "Hey, I'll just wire this talkback so it's permanently on. We'll mute it so we won't worry about how blown up it is when we're listening back, and then I'll figure it out later." So I had to trim, put a limiter on it, things like that. But I think the trim's for phase, yeah. Yeah, but it ends up sounding actually pretty cool. That's fun. Anyway, so those are our drum fills, right? And then the next step, we're like, okay, let's do cymbal crashes. So that's pretty simple. Same setup. We kept the same mic. We just moved the drums and just literally set up crash cymbals left, right. Selected some really small, mostly cracked cymbals that we could use. Just did this. Amazing, right? But still, wanted to have it all separate, so that was fun. Then I went in and I had some ideas that the artist didn't, because not only am I a producer, but I'm a drummer. So I was like, hey, let's do this. I ended up saying, man, on this bridge part, we've got this really cool bridge part. I'm going to lay down an extra snare part. So I laid down this. Super awesome, right? It's like a train beat. They've got the slightest little shuffle to it that I tried to play. Real soft on the snare. Opened up the room mics and everything for that. Then went in, added at the very end of the song, and during that bridge, I added in some backbeats. This is this is all like on that fill setup with just the overhead mic and room mics. That's it. Right? And then finally added some percussion, cut some stuff up so it sounded cool, added like a shaker. Right, nothing amazing. Rain shaker. It's like a little baby rain stick. Metal shaker. I found that one section that just really had like the right dynamics and everything. Still experimenting with some stuff down here that I haven't decided if we like it yet or not. But you put it all together, man, and the middle eight, as they say, over across, as Jeff Lynne might actually say. We've got, make sure everything's in, so I can play that for you. I'm thinking it sounds pretty legit. It. Pretty cool stuff.